the spelling of your name so we can get it correct?
Myrtler, Rucker, Rucker. My address,
Yeah.
256 East J, the letter J. Gas Skipper, 82601.
Can we have your date of birth?
That's, I was getting ready to say October, February the 12th, 1920.
How long have you lived in Casper?
Since 46, 1951. That's was here 50 years last.
Can you just want to tell us about your life here in Casper?
Well, yeah, that's much of it. Okay. Came here and we worked for the Nicolaisons at first when we first came here, up on Wolcott Street. And we were there for 11 years. And then they passed, and I went to
Excuse me,
work.
what did you do for the Nicolaisons?
Took care of the house and caretaker, and he was a chauffeur for them.
Okay.
So we stayed on the place. We had one daughter, and she went to school to Howard University in Washington, D.C. Then she taught for 29 years in Detroit, Michigan. And of course, the sickness caused her to quit work, and she passed away.
What was her name?
Billy Sue Lipsy. And so I went to work for Memorial Hospital, and I worked up there for, oh goodness, I guess how many years did we work there?
Together it was 50. You were there 30, now we're 20.
Yeah, I was there 30 years in one little spot, but it was a good spot. I liked it. Okay. And so I worked in the X-ray department.
To me, she was the best one that they had up there.
Things have changed a little bit though since then, I
Yes.
bet, haven't the equipment? Were you an X-ray technician or?
Taking X-rays.
Good thing.
So-
What kind of experience did you have in public schools in Casper?
What kind of what
Experience?
did I have?
Yeah, in public schools in Casper?
No. Well, I didn't go to school here in Casper.
Where did you go to school?
Just learn on the job. Job training. Dr. Manson, or Dr. Manson was a radiology person
Where were you born and raised?
in Glasgow, Missouri.
Glasgow, Missouri. So what brought you to Casper then?
My husband.
Why did you decide to leave Glasgow, Missouri?
And unemployed.
Unemployed.
No work.
Did you know somebody here in Casper then? or-
My sister, I had a sister here, but she passed a couple of years ago. And I come out here with them. And I just stayed out. I liked the place and I stayed out.
It is a nice place.
It is.
What did you do at the hospital then through those years?
Well, I'm in maintenance.
Maintenance?
It was nice though. I didn't mind it. When I could work, after I could work, I wished I'd have kept on working. But
What's your favorite memory about living in Casper?
Oh, my favorite memory? Jeepers. Well, I guess it would be our little church. We have a very small church, but we have a choir that has sung in every one of the most of the churches here. And then we participate. She and I belong to Church Women United. And I'm secretary, and we work. But it gives you something to do with this. Gives you time to go and do the things that you like to do.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, what's the name of the church?
Grace AME, African Methodist Episcopal Church,
Oh my goodness, where is that located then?
at 305 North Grand.
Okay, and how long has that church been here then?
Oh, 81 years.
81 years.
Yeah, we
Wow.
celebrated last year 80 years.
Do you see the young people being involved in the church?
No,
No.
not in our church, we sure don't. We don't have hardly any young people. That the ones we have, they work, but we just don't have enough young people, because it's mostly older people in
Mhm.
the church.
Yeah. Who is the minister there then?
Reverend Sylvester Owens.
Owens?
Uh-huh.
Okay. See, that's interesting. We've had a lot of people refer people we should be interviewing. His name has never come up once, so
No,
we
well, he
need.
just came here in October
Mhm.
of last year,
Oh, okay.
and so, but he's done real good. He's formed a young group, young choir group that sings with the older choir,
Mhm.
and so, but he plays and sings, and we enjoy him.
What time are the church services on Sundays then?
10:30, 10 to 10:30. And then he has had, for the hot weather, he's been, we've had about 3 Sundays outside. Just
Yeah,
had church in the park. And that was fun, because we didn't have to be where it was so hot.
Yeah, I'd be interested in attending a service sometime. I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, we have the Methodist church downtown, the United Methodist Church. Reverend Hoover has come and brought his group with us several times. And so we enjoy, going, and they enjoy coming with us.
Yeah, we all fellowship together.
Great. Okay.
Okay. What's your worst memory?
Oh, well, the worst memory I had was the losing of my daughter. So, that was,
Did she have cancer or
no, she was a diabetic.
diabetes?
Okay. Do you have any direct experiences you have been told about or experienced yourself in regards to discrimination of Afro-Americans in Casper?
No, not really. We worked at the Nicolason home, and we had our own apartment there, and everything was just like our real home. And so, as far as, being considered in the family, we couldn't have asked for any better people to work.
That's wonderful. What did Nicolaisons do again? I remember the name. I was born and raised here, and
Uh-huh.
I remember the name. What did they do again?
They had a lumber yard, and then they would ranch out. What's it? North is. Don't ask me any direction.
Yeah, they own the Cold Creek Ranch.
And yeah,
Right. Okay.
And,
yeah,
probably up there with the other two
yeah.
places.
Are there any other stories or experiences you can share that can help our understanding of the history of Casper?
Well, let's see. We've done. Okay, speak up, you guys. Somebody.
What do you say?
She wants to have some experiences that we've had.
That can help us understand more of Casper's history?
I don't know too much about North Casper's
Because all my
history.
experiences have been,
They
I
good
can't complain
experience.
about it, been good. You know,
We, the thing of it is that none of us have lived over here. See, I never lived over here, and that's part of the
and we, in other words, we just newcomers over to this side.
and so that really makes a difference because, you know, you don't come in contact with the same people. And like with the girls that I worked with, like, whenever they have a party or have a dinner or something, they'd invite me and I just go and my husband goes when they have to. So we really don't know too much about being accepted because we never went through it. Even in my little hometown in Missouri, we didn't have that, you know. But when I hear people saying all these little things that have happened, then I just,
It surprises you, huh?
yeah.
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 Is there like a cultural hub of the African American community? I suppose through the church there is, but see, I'm 100% Finn. And I remember growing up here, and somehow my parents found other Finns that were here, and it very much became a cultural thing, or weekends, Sundays, whatever, you know, it was spending time with.
Yeah, that's true, too. Well, we have three churches, isn't it?
Mhm.
We have a
Christ
couple,
Church
yeah,
and,
two Baptist churches, and then.
What are the other two Baptist churches then? Do you have their names?
First Christ and Abundant Life.
Yeah.
First Life,
No, First Christ.
First Christ, and
Mhm.
Abundant Life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carol Henderson is she's over that part of it. Carol Henderson.
What's her name?
Carol
Carol
Henderson.
Carolyn
And Reverend
Henderson.
Pierce's church is, imitate the image. Is
Yeah.
that Baptist? I don't know.
No.
Reverend Pierce says imitate the image.
Imitate the image.
Imitate the
It's
image.
kind of different religious.
Okay.
Let's see, who else do we have? But we have what we call choir day. And then we go together and invite all the choirs, the black choirs, and they come and sing. And we have a really religious meeting then. We have, the church is full, you know, because everybody wants to come here to hear the mixed choir sing.
Yeah,
And we have some of the
Lobel and his
Open
choir.
Bible Church. They come and sing with us. So we have a good.
Yeah, we have a good time.
Yeah, so.
Sounds like it is.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Do you go and
It's
have do
October
the choirs from your church go sing in the other churches too then?
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
Well, we go, in fact, we go
Yeah, we
down
gotta-
to United Methodist all the time.
Why do you think there are like 3 or 4 different churches that the Afro-American population Casper has started? Has there ever been talk of combining them into one, or why have they remained
That's something
separate?
we
Yeah,
have to
they've-
figure out.
They've talked about combining them, but we had it was not up at Casper College. We went there and we had that was Casper College, wasn't it? Where we had that
Yeah.
concert.
It's out where the microphone can hear you.
Yeah, and we had a program, and they wanted to know the history of the church. And now, you may not have been told the history, but I gave the history of the African Methodist Episcopal Church and how it was formed. And that's where we came in with the segregation. And it come in the fact that they didn't want us to have prayer or services with the others. And the church just pulled out.
Who is they? You said they didn't want to say it.
The members.
Of the AME church.
Uh-huh.
No, the Methodists, the members of the Methodist church
Yeah.
didn't want the blacks worshiping them in the quarter. They would sit in the back, they had them sitting in the back seat, and they were praying, and they would pull them off their knees.
That's
So
where
they
it started
bound up
of the
our
church.
Yeah.
So that happened here in Casper.
Oh, no,
Oh,
this
no,
is the,
this was
of the
19.
church, you know.
Oh, I see where the AME started.
Where the
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
back
I
in
see.
1685. I said that
Yeah.
was way before we even thought
We
about
believe
being
that
born.
was in
But it-
1700.
Huh?
In 1700 or something.
Yeah, that's what I said. So that was where the church really got its roots.
Mhm.
So then out of that church, they started their own church with the trustee boards and stewardess boards and all that in the church.
Was the AME church here, already here when you moved here, or were you instrumental in helping get going, or?
Well, when we come here, it wasn't too much of a church. It was not that many Negroes here. And I guess it was because it's been during the war. And when well, my husband come out in January, and I came out in June, 1st of June. But we came in and started to work right into the church, you know. But that's how come we have the annual church. Then our church is done by districts. You see, we are one district, and then you go about 4 or 5 more cities, and that's another district. So that's why we have all these different churches.
Yeah.
Do you have any relatives in Casper?
Nobody but, we have some nephews, and that, that's about it, isn't it?
Are there any other people you feel we should talk to?
That, well, I could give you some names, you know.
Yeah, if you could take some time and write down some names and phone numbers for us, that'd be great, and also pursue that one about
Okay.
how you had interviewed with somebody else before, you know, you didn't know she was still here.
Okay. Yeah, well, this woman that we did before, she took the interview, and then Mrs. Mrs. Hines, Mrs. Hines, so she's was wanting to take the history, and at the time she was wanting to take the history, while I had to be going back and forth to Michigan with our daughter, so we just stayed there, and so we for almost 2 months, you know, to be with the children.
Is Mrs. Hines here in Casper still? or-
Uh-huh. But we never did get it finished, you know. She's up at the Casper College.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you
And
know
she spells her name with a H-E-I.
H-E-I-N?
Uh-huh.
Is she Afro-American, or?
No.
No.
No, she is.
What does she do at the college, do you know?
Well, she teaches, I guess, that's what, you
She
know.
sounds like somebody we need to contact if she's been interested in it, you know.
Yeah, she's been interested, and she wanted us to carry it through, but you know how when you stop doing something, and especially with something like that, well, it's just kind of hard to get yourself back. Huh?
The Negroes in Casper, the blacks in Casper, that's what you're
Yeah, well, they don't care, just so that they're Negroes, that's all you care, isn't it? That's what you want to find out, and the way they live, and all. But,
I think I hear a generational thing. I'm sure they are not used to hearing the word Negro either. You know, it has been for many long
Oh,
time,
yeah.
Afro-American and black now, which
Yeah.
I'm very pleased with. But they come from a generation where that was just very, that was the labeling at that
That's
time.
right, that's right.
Yeah.
And they still, that's what their label is now. They go like that mostly. Now they are, the Baptist has the largest congregation. Because most Baptists come from down south. So therefore they have more people than we have. But that's where you find most of it. But I can help get some names for you.
Oh, would you do that,
Yeah.
please? I would really appreciate it. They would too, because it's been, we've had a lot of names referred to us, but we don't know how to contact them. You know, it's a lot of work's going into that now too.
Yeah. You know, I was looking through that list last night, and then
Did you recognize any of the graduates on that?
all of them practically.
Really?
But the only thing about it is that those people leave town for jobs and so forth. So therefore, this is why you don't have nothing but the list of them. But but these here, when I got to going through, they have what, about three, four nephews that are on that list. You know, they graduated here. You know, but
Could we ask you, I mean, I just, all of a sudden, I'm just excited to know that you know so many of them. Could we also ask you to take some time and jot down where you think they went and what happened to them?
yeah, well, because I did that last night. I copied some of the stuff, but they had that from, I was, had put down these Castorites attend the first black homecoming. They had here. And so I have quite a few of them, because our club we had a federated club, and the federated club was
Can you tell us about the Federated Club that you had?
Where's my? What about the? Is that? Let me see. It's here. I got them last night. They had them here. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Those are short tapes. We're gonna have to go get longer tapes.
In here. See that.
You know, anything you have that you would trust me with to copy, we would really appreciate it, because if they decide to do a book, all of this will go into the book, and it will be preserved forever then.
Yeah.
And you have my personal guarantee I will handle it with just the utmost fragile care and consideration, and you'll get everything back.
Okay. Well, I do have a book for the federated clubs.
May I borrow this for a few days and then get it back to you? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Make a note of what I'm taking here, so.
Let's see. Our federated club had their 50th anniversary for our mother and daughter banquet. We have a mother and daughter banquet that we've had for 50 years.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna write a note to you too to remind you what we want you to do for us, okay?
All right, okay.
Did you wanna find out something about her friend here now, so while we're here?
I'll do that.
What's your last name?
B-Y-E-R.
Is that a C or a K?
That's C.
Okay. And what's your address?
1169 Elma.
Can we have your birthday?
February 25th, 1928.
That's right, she was February.
How long have you lived in Casper?
Oh, honey. I came here November the 19th, 1954. Got it from that. 40-some years.
Okay, do you have any experiences in public schools in Casper? Okay.
Where were you from then?
My home is Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. What brought you here?
I came here on a visit. I've been visiting ever since.
Were you visiting a relative or a friend?
With his
or-
friend.
Great.
Your turn. What is your favorite memory about Casper? What is your favorite memory about Casper?
I need so many of them, and I can't name them all.
You have just one?
Well, the memory when I first came here, I got a job working at the Union Hotel.
Wow. I remember that hotel.
Good days.
I'm dating myself in front of these kids, you know.
What's your worst memory about Casper?
I don't have any.
Did you have any discrimination?
No.
And do you have any relatives here?
Just my daughter, my son, and my grandchildren. And God's a friend.
Do you know any other people we should talk to?
She and I will probably come up with the
Same,
same
different,
one.
same people.
We both go to the same church together.
Stop. Can we get the names of your daughter and son?
My son's name Paul Darren.
What's your
And
dad?
my daughter's name Denise Newman.
What's her last name?
Newman.
Newman.
What did you do at the Henning Hotel?
Well, when I first started out, I was a dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved up pantry girl. Then I moved to cooking.
And what happened after all that? I mean, the Henning closed down
The
eventually.
Henning closed down, and then I started working at the, I worked at the Reef. And then, I worked at the, after the Henning closed, I went to the Gladstone. And then I worked at the Reef.
Where was the Reef now?
The Reef used to be right across the street from the Henning.
Okay. Now the Henning was where that parking lot is
Yes,
now?
uh-huh.
Yeah.
As you come up First Street.
First and Center Street where the
Mhm.
parking lot
Yes.
is. And the Gladstone was across the
Yes,
street where that
that's-
office building
mhm.
is. And the Reef was,
The Reef was right across from the Henning.
okay,
Right on the corner of the plaza down there in the first.
where the plaza is,
Uh-huh.
yes, okay. Now,
Then I worked at the country club in Paradise Valley.
You worked all over town.
I worked at the Ramada for 22 years.
wow.
And after they changed the name to the Downtowner, I worked for the Downtown 11 years. And finally retired.
What about, do either of you have any memories about, well, I'm sure you do, and I'm sure you're going to educate us, the social aspect? Like, I can remember, wasn't there a club over here?
Not Casper.
Yeah, the North Casper Club. I mean, bands, music, the whole thing.
Yeah.
What kinds of things happened around that?
Nothing.
Not too much. And then when I first came here, they used to have, they had this club across the river, they called it the Riverside.
Mm-hmm.
But I never did make it there though.
Well, you see, that's why we,
I've heard lots of
This
stories
is-
of that place.
this is why we all organized our club. Because as far as young people, they didn't have any entertainment for them. So this is why we organized the club. And see, I was first president, and stayed president for 15 years until I said, ooh, this is it. But we had the club, and we just had most time piano or what was the machines called, the jukeboxes, and then we would have just regular sweetheart ball, and we would that's where we raised money to have to spend. We have then we would you know, we would invite people to come in. And that's why we had social. We didn't have any this until, you know, in the late years.
What about the history of the sandbar? Now, that's been mentioned to us too, and I really don't have any memory of that either.
Well,
Well, the
we
sand-
got this book on the sandbar, but I could not find it yet.
Yeah, I got one too, and I couldn't find it, but I'll look for it.
Okay. Somebody's done a book on that then?
Uh-huh.
We need to go to Casper Call,
And
you might have him spell his name so we make sure that we have it correct.
is it D-O-N?
Yes.
And then Jackson, J-A-C-K-S-O-N?
Yeah.
Can we have your date of birth?
September 9th, 1952.
Dawn, that's another thing I forgot to mention. If there are any questions that they ask you that you don't want to answer, just say, I just soon skip on that. Age, I know, can be sensitive, but it's also part of the history now. So, but if it comes to something,
Yeah.
just say, can we skip to the next question?
How long have you lived in Casper?
Right offhand, I have to think back. At least 30 years. I don't know exactly. I'd have to figure it out.
Okay.
So you came here with your family when you were,
Yeah, I was going to I was in the 4th grade.
why did your family move here, do you know?
'Cause my dad moved, my grandfather moved here. Then my dad followed him out here.
Who is your grandfather?
His name was Les Jackson.
Les Jackson. How,
Yeah.
do you know why your grandfather came?
I imagine he had some friends that came out here for one reason or another.
Jobs.
They had jobs, different types of jobs.
Do you know what he did, Les?
I don't know what he did.
Okay, what about your father? What's his name?
Donald Jackson,
And
same name.
why did your dad come out then?
For different kind of work. He didn't like the work that was in the town that we was from.
What did he do here then?
Oh, he started out, I don't know, janitor work and washing cars and just any kind of work that you get.
Do you want to tell
That's
us?
what he started out at.
And what did he become then? I mean, what was his permanent employment then?
Now he works for Pacific Power and Light. Yeah.
Retiring this year.
Come on in, have a seat.
And where does Don live now then?
On Lennox, right around the corner.
Do you think he'd let us interview him?
Maybe. He probably would.
Okay, what address on Lennox?
2005.
You guys getting that? Do you have his phone number too?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're 4th grade here from Kansas. I'll let you two go ahead and take over again.
Do you want to tell us about your life here in Casper? Since you moved?
What would you like to know? About my life?
Yeah.
I just went to school.
Did you have discrimination at school?
Not really, but there was little things that went on every once in a while. We had let's see. Oh, might not have been discrimination. There was prejudice. One time we had a baseball game in the summertime, and then we were coming home, and then a whole bunch of white guys our age followed us home. We had like a fight that night with those guys. Well, that was just prejudice. We knew them, but they were just being prejudiced. Thought they could beat us up and stuff, but they couldn't. But I imagine that's prejudice.
About how old were you then?
We was I remember I was in junior high.
Well,
Whatever age, that's about 14 or something.
so which elementary school did you go to then?
Willard?
What were your experiences like at Willard? And you went to East Junior High then too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole bunch of prejudice and discrimination. You really didn't notice it back then. But there wasn't a whole lot of it that I noticed.
That isn't the main focus, discrimination.
Yeah.
Any other experiences you can think of from elementary or junior high about your experience?
That was about the only thing that happened was that fight that one night coming home from the baseball park.
probably because you were more active in sports and you were more looked up to by your peers for sports, then you didn't really get into trouble or fight.
Yeah, but we still didn't see a lot of prejudice, I mean discrimination and stuff.
What's your favorite memory about living in Casper?
Favorite memory?
Yeah.
No. Probably just, I don't know,
Always talk about
participate.
breaking your track record.
Yeah, participating in sports. One year I broke the high jump record. It was the best in the state, but it wasn't at a state meet, but it was at the meet of champions. That was a good memory.
Didn't your football record stand for 10 years too?
That's
Or no, your
sports.
high jump.
That's what I just said.
Yeah. Stood for 10 years at Kelly Walsh.
I don't know how long it was.
Larry Taylor broke it
Yeah.
10 years later, in 81.
You're a graduate of Kelly then?
Yes.
Okay.
What's your worst memory about living in Casper?
Oh. Man, I don't know, probably going to high school and then they had that Black 14 incident down at the University of Wyoming. That was bad.
Can you explain to them what that incident was? Our principal was very much a part of that.
Yeah, I know. I went to school with Mel. That was when the Black 14 players, they were protesting, wore black armbands against BYU because blacks, they couldn't be priests or something in the Mormon
Could be part of the
religion.
church.
I just think they couldn't be priests, they could be a part of the church. But anyway, the players protested and they kicked them off the team. And that wasn't such a good memory.
Do you have any other stories or experience you can share that will help our understanding of the history of Afro-Americans in Casper?
I'll run that question back one more time.
Are there any stories or experiences you can share that will help our understanding of the history?
What do you think? Blacks did a lot for the state, just a different culture, you know, being here, just being exposed, showing that blacks, we are different, and you always excel in sports and stuff like that.
Why do you say you're different?
Just a different culture, you know, everybody's human, but all the culture, people are just different.
How is the culture different here? Can you describe it?
Well, one thing, for instance, the cultures, mainly with us having a little guy, for instance, their hair. Black people don't produce grease like we do. We wash our hair daily. They don't produce a grease where they have to grease their hair daily to keep it in shape, to keep it conditioned, to keep it healthy. That probably being from Africa, being in the climate they were there,
Hereditary, yeah.
it was a hereditary thing where they probably don't have to do it because
An
of the,
adaptation, yeah.
but to adapt to this country, they have to put conditioning grease, actually, and it's a thick grease that they have to put in their hair in order to keep their scalps from not being dry. I don't know what else as far as
The
being
couple that
different.
we interviewed this afternoon, by the way, we're doing this too, you know, as we go along, we're probably going to be able to
can tell
polish
he's very,
this a
very
little bit better.
nervous.
And so please, relax. And the couple we interviewed this afternoon, I got very much, they're in their late 70s now, and one of their friends, and very much their culture exists within their church, the Grace AME Church.
Oh, uh-huh.
And
Who did you interview?
Her name is
Ruck-
Myrtle.
Ruckett?
Ruck-
Rucker?
Yeah.
We belong to that church as well.
Oh, she's a wonderful lady.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed visiting with her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you belong to that church
Uh-huh.
too. We asked her about the young people, and she said they're getting to be fewer and fewer young
There
people
are.
involved in the church. Why do you think that's happening?
I think it's because of, our congregation has always been small, and we try to get the younger kids involved and have youth groups, but we've just never been successful at keeping the parents there, for one thing, and that's really sad to say. There's about 3 other black churches in Casper, the community, and there's a lot that belong to the Baptist church, a lot of the black community. But as far as AME Grace, I think it's because they've either moved away, so the members that are there it's just slowly fading, and it's sad.
Dawn, I get the idea as you went through the public schools in Casper, you were very, what question did I want to ask? Do you feel that your life might have been different if you hadn't been involved in the athletics as you went through the school systems here, or?
Yeah, it would have been different. You'd have been studying, you'd have been maybe getting into music or, doing something else, but when you're in sports, you pretty much just dedicate and focus on your sports and stuff. But
Did you have friends who were Afro-American who were also involved in the sports with you?
yeah, I had a few. There was only a few of us anyway, and a few that were going to school with me. They did participate in sports. There's only a few of us, as it was.
How many in your graduating class?
Just me and Leon.
2?
Leon and myself, yeah. But there was some ahead of us, some behind us, But we were split up.
Are there any other people you feel we should talk to?
That would be a good person. Maybe George Roseburg would be good. Him or, let's see. Who else? Can't think of it.
George who?
Roseburg. Ken Morgan, come to think of it.
Ken Morgan Clark went to the University of Wyoming and Casper College on scholarships for sports as well.
Is he Afro-American too?
Yeah.
It's not just African Americans, we're interviewing everybody who has a knowledge of any kind of history at all. Dawn, what did you do
I think your dad.
What did you do for those Friday nights when you weren't doing athletics here? I mean, what kinds of things would your crowd of people, your friends do, is what I'm trying to ask.
What do you mean, in high school?
Yeah.
Friday nights, let's see, they had the rec center. It was downtown. Go down there and play pool and dance. That was about it. Once in a while, somebody would have a neighborhood party or something.
Yeah, we hear our teenagers saying the same thing. There's just not that much to do. What about, did you go on to the university or?
Yes, I did. I went down there for a couple of years. Played football 1 year. That's where I met Mel down there too.
He's a neat guy.
Yeah, I've known Mel a long time.
What do you do now?
I'm a truck driver off and on. I do a little bit of everything. Been a custodian, all kind of things. Bus driver 1 year.
Do you have any other relatives in Casper?
Yes, I have my father and my mother, and I have a brother that lives here,
What's your brother's name?
Ron.
And what does Ron do here?
He does cuts hair and stuff.
He's a cosmetologist, but he's got a back injury right now. He's not able to work.
How can we get hold of him?
Uh,
We're gonna try to be very thorough about this.
Rowdy, you got his phone number.
Mhm.
She has his number. I don't have it. He changed it. I don't know it anymore.
And what is your wife's name? We want that too.
Beth,
Beth?
and
Okay.
this is Cameron.
Beth and Cameron's his son. We sure get that, you guys. I'd like to get a picture of the three of you together here in a minute too.
Oh, I got a big coleslaw on it.
Oh, they can't see it. It's not a close-up.
Don, the Jackson family seems to be extended. Is Josh a relation to you too?
There's no relation. There's two family of Jacksons here.
Two families.
There's
What
two
about
different
Terry?
families.
So Terry's no relation?
No relation.
Okay.
He's related to them.
Okay. Did you see that list of graduates we sent you? We were wondering if you could look at that and tell us if you know what happened to some of them. We enclosed in that letter we sent you a list of graduates from NC and KW.
I don't know if we got that or not.
What's that?
A list of graduates. What year did they
Oh,
graduate?
these kids went and identified all of the Afro-American graduates from the beginning.
1920 or something.
We didn't get
Starting
that.
1930. I enclosed it in the letters that I sent you.
You been getting the mail?
I haven't seen a letter. I'm sorry, I haven't.
Did I not get a letter to you? Maybe that's what happened. I got the letters
No,
out
well,
just
you
the
got-
night before I was
you missed
leaving
it
for
or something.
vacation, so I might have missed it. Probably because your name's down at the bottom instead of right on the, you know, I probably missed it because this is where they wrote the interview time and I was going by this
Yeah.
stuff up here. Well, let me show you this. This list of graduates from Kelly Walsh and NC. And if you could look at it, just tell us if you know any of them. I can find it. Here's. Oh, that's not it. I think we need to get my folder organized here. This is what happens when you go on vacation and don't have time to get things together.
Yeah.
I may have to run it.
To the elementary school, but I couldn't find it. And I've been looking for a telephone book. My mother's was in the telephone book. He was in the telephone book. You know, one of them old, like 46, 47, 1946, 47. And I thought the school may have had records. The administration building of the school might have had records of all the old schools that they had, but they tore it down.
Yeah, my guess is probably not, but we can check on that, and that's a good idea.
Well,
Thank
I was
you.
just doing that for verification.
Yeah.
And like I said, this book also has a lot of reference.
Well, I come here in 1943. I was
Okay, go ahead. No, would you like to tell all the kids about this? I don't think they know
yeah,
that
it
at
was,
all.
it was an air base out there. And one time it was 20,000 troops out there, 20,000 soldiers.
Tell them where at the airport.
Where the airport is now, that was an air base. And my outfit, it was a crack outfit, 811 engineers. And I know you have heard, looked on television, where that airplane fell on Guam. Or did you?
Yeah, there was an air crash in Guam. Did you know that this summer? Yeah.
And where it fell, it was Nimitz Hill. And Chester W. Nimitz was an admiral in the Navy. In other words, he was over the 6th Fleet in the Pacific. Well, right where that airplane fell, my outfit, that was the camp. Now, you understand, there were no barracks. We were sleeping on the ground. Because we were soldiers, you know. I know you kids don't understand that, but that's the way it was.
No, they don't. The more you explain to them, the better off they're going to be.
Yeah, and so that hill was named Nimitz Hill. Then we moved from there to down in Agana. That's a little town on Guam. And then from the airfield was named Harmon Field. Then we moved from there to Northwest Field. And then part of the outfit went to Saipan. That's a 114-mile water mile. I don't know, the Navy could explain better than me about the mile. They call it knots or something, I don't know. But anyway, part of the outfit went to Saipan. And it's 30 miles across the channel from Saipan is Tinian. And that's where they left with Tinian with the atomic bomb, 3 B-29. And One was the bomb, one was a weather observation plane, and one was a photo plane. And they went and bombed Hiroshima. So then, pretty soon the war was over. But I did get to go, I went to Tokyo, Japan. Well, I've been there. It is something to see. Yeah. Well, if there's anything else, you're going to have to, you know, I'll answer your question, but you're going to have to ask me.
Your arrival here in Casper, when y'all come to Casper?
I come to Casper in 1943, the 21st of April, 1943. I was a military policeman. I brought 21 soldiers here
From where?
from Coins, Utah.
It was a military transfer here then for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How many Afro-American military people served in World War II from here?
You mean that was drafted in the Army or was out there at that base?
Out at that base?
865.
Afro-Americans?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So you were transferred here, the Army transferred you here?
Yeah, well, the story was I was a military policeman, and I'm supposed to bring 21 soldiers here. So I delivered them, and the company commander liked me and said he was going to keep me. Well, I didn't want to stay here because I'm a young man, and I didn't see no girls, and I didn't want to stay. So, but he said, well, you can't tell me what you want to do, so you're in the Army. So he called or did something and back to my commanding officer in Utah, and they transferred my papers here. So I was stationed here.
And you stayed here after the war too then?
I come back.
You came back?
Yeah, I
okay.
went overseas and come back.
Why?
A guy told me if I'd come back, he'd give me a job. I'm a wool presser, a silk finisher.
Yeah.
In fact, I know quite a bit about dry cleaning.
And you might be the only black that did silk finishing here in Casper, right? The works of cleaners that
I
you
might
know
be.
of? Well, that's what they're looking for,
Yeah,
what you did.
I might be.
Almost
I
black
didn't
to his knowledge.
know of nobody else.
That did silk finishing.
But I learned Margot, a woman, how to do it.
Mhm.
And then, I don't know, dry cleaning went down. I got this wash and wear come in. And I quit the dry cleaners and I started to work at the post office department. That's where I retired.
What'd you do for the Postal Service then?
Oh, I carried mail. And I was a mechanic. And then they transferred me out of the post office department over to the GSA. That's the landlord that takes care of all of the government agencies. In other words, GSA owns all the buildings. So they transferred me from the post office over to GSA.
What was the name of the dry cleaners that you worked for?
Oh, the Daily Dry Cleaners was the first one, Midwest Dry Cleaners, the Vogue Cleaners, the Casper Dry Cleaners, the Cascade Cleaners. Tell me, what is that one up on East Second, on the right?
It was one of our modernizing, it's Fibercare now. Is that the one you're talking about on
No,
Second?
it's down, it's on East Second, on
Oh.
the wardrobe cleaner, the wardrobe.
Wardrobe,
Yeah.
right, okay.
I worked quite a few dry cleaners.
Where was the Daily Dry Cleaners? I've never heard of that.
Right
one.
where the federal building is now.
Okay. Want to go ahead and ask me your questions, you guys?
Can we have your date of birth?
I was born June the 26th, 1917.
And how long have you lived in Casper?
I lived in, well, when I first come here, as a soldier, April the 21st, 1943, went overseas and come back, got out of the Army in 47, and I've been here ever since. Well, I've taken some trips, but I made it my home. I've lived in this house 41 years.
Would you mind to tell us more about your life?
Sure. I've never been in jail in my life, and I'm 80 years old. What do you think of that?
That's a good point.
That's great.
That's a good point. Tell them.
And you can check, huh?
Tell them if you're married and you didn't have
Oh, yeah.
no children. Tell me.
I was married to
How long?
52 years. We lived together 52 years. And she passed away the 11th of November, 95, here in Casper. She had diabetes.
No children.
No children, no.
What kind of experiences did you have in public schools in Casper?
I didn't go to school in Casper. In fact, I only went to the 7th grade in Georgia. That's where I was born. And I was on a farm. So I've had a pretty hard life. You couldn't imagine. Not now. These days and times, you couldn't imagine the things that I went through.
Why?
All kinds of discrimination.
We want you to talk about that. Could you tell us about it?
Oh my!
The students you're looking at right now don't have the experiences that you have, okay? And they want to learn about your life. So would you share the
Well,
discrimination?
sure. Anything that they ask me, I'll tell them.
And if you met any while you were here in Casper too, then I think that's what.
Oh,
they wanna know.
yes.
If you tell them
I've
that,
experienced discrimination here in Casper.
I think that's what they want to
In
know.
fact, on the base, you understand, I was in the army, and I was in a segregated army, fighting for the same thing that everyone else was fighting for, but I was discriminated. There were certain places that I couldn't go, but yet I wore the uniform. And on the bus, when we would get on the bus at the base and come to town, they would want us to sit in the back. Well, me and another soldier, we integrated because we wouldn't go to the back. And we finished that off. So when you get on the bus, you sit in the way you wanted to sit. After we had some trouble on the bus. Yeah. And I was young and didn't care, you know. So you remember now, I've been as young as you. And in the South, you had a separate drinking fountain. You go to the, oh yes, if you go to a public place, it says white here, colored here. You go to the theater. The white go downstairs, the black go upstairs. Oh, there's many other things, many things.
What about here in Casper? Did you experience discrimination here in Casper?
Some, like in restaurants. Now this has been some time ago, not now.
You feel it's changed for the better?
Oh, yes, it has changed.
Great. Restaurants, tell us about the restaurants then.
Well, I went into a restaurant called the 114th Club. It was on the center. You remember that one?
I don't know. I don't remember that one. 114?
Yeah.
I don't remember that one.
It was on East 2nd.
I don't remember that one.
And they wouldn't serve you. They wouldn't serve blacks. But then it's open, I think.
Yeah, I'm Holly Thompson, Police Junior High. This is Chester.
Hi.
These are our students. They're interviewing him for our oral histories project.
They wouldn't serve blacks. And some black come out of Chicago and they went in this 114th club. They wouldn't serve them. And the two blacks, they kind of scarred it up a little bit. They got fighting in it, and so they put the guys in jail, put them two black guys in jail. But they let them out, and then I guess they had a court hearing or something, then they integrated it. Yeah.
Chester, I'm gonna hold here for a second. Would you like me to have some of the kids come here so you can get?
Actually,
And you should tell them you're one of the veterans, you ride on the floats.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
The parade,
right.
when they have the parade
Yeah,
every year.
yeah, when they have the parade, I'm in one of the floats. That Casper Air Base veterans, well, I'm on that float.
What is your worst memory about Casper?
Well, let's see, I don't know. Really don't know. I've had so many, you know. I can't think of nothing now.
Bad experience.
I had a good life here in Casper. Yeah. Of course, I worked all my life, too.
Can you tell them any more about any of the discrimination that you experienced here?
Well, like I said, I tried to buy that house up on Melrose, and they wouldn't sell it to me because I was black. And I qualified for it.
What about renting? Did you, when you tried to rent a place?
Yeah, there's certain places that you couldn't rent. Yeah. In fact, you had to live in North
In
Casper.
North Casper, if you
You
was black.
couldn't live on the other side of town.
Not until, what, 60s or 70s?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. But if you got a house, you was over there. If you wasn't on that bar.
And like I tell you, I'm 80 years old, and I've never been in jail in my life. If they was to put me in jail, I'd have a heart attack.
Chester, what did your wife do?
She retired from the school. She worked at NC. She worked in the cafeteria.
And what was her name?
Lucille Broadnax.
Lucille. And no children?
No.
Okay. Why was the air base your favorite memory? Can you tell us some more about that?
Well, yeah, because once, one morning, there was a captain, and he was flying a B-24, and he got a letter from his wife that she wanted a divorce. In other words, she was divorcing him. And it's someplace in Kentucky or Tennessee someplace. But anyway, he couldn't take it, and those B-24s had propellers on them. They wasn't jets in World War II. And he committed suicide by walking right up and let this propeller cut him all to pieces. And we had to go out and sweep the remains up out there on the runway. That's why I think about it a lot, because I've seen that.
can I ask a question? Would it hurt, is there a place for you to sit outside? Do you like a place in the patio?
How about your patio? Is it?
It's full of boxes.
It's full of boxes, oh, okay.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
You try to get more sunlight, oh. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but actually, can you eat down, Mr. Broadnax? If it's not too much for you? I'm just trying to get you more into that light. This is not light, it's just, it's not a lot of light.
If you stick that thing in over there, that light will come on.
Except then it'll turn you all yellow, especially.
We'll take that off.
Oh, no, that, the
It'll
light, the type
glare.
of light,
It'll glare.
what happens is this is for daylight, film is for daylight. And these kind of lights turn it yellow. So I don't like to ship this inside flat.
There's a lot of light over there.
Oh, how about on that side?
Yeah,
That's
how about
the
this side of the room?
switch sides?
That'd be nice.
Okay.
Except,
You want to stand out here right side, but there ain't no sun right here, is inside the house?
yeah, if there's a lot more light out there.
I don't know.
Can we sit out there?
Just right, well,
Night, and it's gonna get cold. That line there, that water comes out of that line and go over to my swamp.
Why did you do that? Didn't you have running water or?
Yeah. I want to water my garden and lawn and save money.
See, I've never seen anything like it, so I'm learning something new.
Yeah. See, it's real cold now. Water coming out of that well.
This is water you didn't have to pay the BPU for then, huh?
That's right. See that pressure rising on it?
You get it first.
He asked me what hole it was, and I had her pouring water down in the hole, and she said, I ain't gonna pour no more water down in the hole because there ain't no water down there no way. What? She got out at a time, don't tell her you. And she went on in the house. But I dug that well. I'm down 22 feet and a half, right straight down.
How'd you get all the way down there and not look and get back up?
No, it ain't, the hole ain't no, this is the size of the hole here. You know, and I had an extension on my hole digger, and I backed my truck in here and stood on the truck and would screw the hole digger and then pick it up and bring it out and then rest and do it again. And I kept on till I got down 22 feet and a half. And then this is on the end of this pipe down in there's a sand point. And I drove this down in the hole that I had dug. You understand what a sand point is? A sand point, it's got holes in it and a screen. That sand point is on the bottom of this hole, on the bottom of this pipe. And then it screens the water. Then you put this in there with a foot valve on it. Then you hook it to your pump. You prime the pump and start it, and the water comes out. Well, you do it. See that water? And I got a tank inside this house. Yeah? But I don't have any, it's just a small amount. But I got so much experience. In fact, some of my experience will overpower your education. Oh yes. You've got to have that experience too. If I was a young man or a young girl, I'd go to school, I'd finish, and then I would go to college, and then I'd travel. I'd get some world experience. I'd go to Europe, go to foreign countries, and learn about people. Have any of you ever been out of the United States? Well, you see, I've been to Tokyo, Manila, been to Sydney, Australia. Somebody head shot off. the arm, leg. I went all through that. Sometimes I can't talk about it. You know, it's something else.
Well, I'm gonna need to start getting these kids back to school. We have interviewing.
The 6th of March, got out 30th of January, 47. I spent 28 months overseas. Yeah. I wouldn't want to go back through it, but oh boy, I had a good time. Dangerous, ain't young people crazy? They crazy. Yeah.
SWANTON Avenue.
Mrs. Stout, would you come to the office, please, Mrs. Stout?
82605. Anything else?
Can we have your date of birth?
Date of birth, 2/14/47. So what day is that, guys?
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. Big Valentine. Josh would love to be on Valentine's Day. Okay.
How long have you lived in Casper?
I moved to Casper in 1974.
Where'd you move from, Mr. Hamilton?
I moved from, I came to Wyoming actually in 1965, but that was to go to college down the University of Wyoming. And before there, I was in Boys Town, Nebraska, right outside of Omaha.
Can you tell them a little bit about your life before coming to Casper then?
Yeah.
Or a lot about your life.
Yeah, I can do that. I was originally born in Charleston, South Carolina. My family left there when I was 3. And we moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, where I stayed for the next 9 years. Okay. During my stay in Wilmington, being an average 12-year-old, 13-year-old, got in a lot of mischief. And my mom was trying to take care of 5 boys and 2 girls by herself because my dad was constantly on the road trying to find work in the South. That was kind of tough for a black man to do in those days. So my mom was trying to raise our family by herself. And so I started getting some mischief with my crew, my buddies, you know, sneaking out of the window at night, standing on street corners, you know, doing those things that young people tend to do if they don't have enough supervision. And so unbeknownst to me, my mom worked behind the scenes to get me in Father Flanagan Boys Town in Omaha. And the day before I was to leave Wilmington to go to Boys Town by bus, by Greyhound, my mom told me that I was going to Boys Town. And you can imagine the fear, number one, and the knowledge that you're going to be away from your family. So I fought that all the way, and I can remember my mom just grabbing me by the arm and walking to the bus station, which was about 5 blocks south of my home, and putting me on the bus. And I was kicking and crying all the way. But it took me 3 days and 2 nights to get to Omaha on the bus, and it was petrified. But that went to Father Flanagan home and stayed there for 4 years and came to University of Wyoming in 1965.
Can you tell them about Boys Town? I bet some of them don't know what it is.
Boys Town was started by Father Flanagan, a Catholic priest from Ireland. He came over here, and there were so many boys that were orphaned and had no place to stay. There was hustling in the street. just trying to make a living. So he bought a house on Dodge Street in Omaha, and he started the home with 5 boys who, you know, like shoe shine boys that were trying to make it on their own, but didn't have a family. And it originally started for orphans. And then over the years, Father Flanagan, well, before 3 years, he had so many kids, he had to move out of this house. So he found this farm and talked this owner into donating it to him for a boys' home. And then he started taking kids from all over the country. And now you have kids that are in trouble with the law. Some judges might say, you know, they used to say you go to the Army or you go to jail, and some judges say you go to Boys Town or you go to jail. And so now it takes in not only orphans, but problem kids as well, kids at risk. And all over the world, not just the United States, all over the world.
You were how old when you got there?
12 years old.
And
And left to when I was, 14 years old, and left when I was 18, graduated in 1965. Went to University of Wyoming at that point. So for all practical purposes, I've been in Wyoming since 1965.
why the University of Wyoming, Mr. Hammond?
Well, I had a friend I met in Boys Town, and he had been in Boys Town 3 years prior to me going there. Name is Kenneth Gilchrist. He's now a social worker, probation officer here in town. And he and I got to be very, very good friends. We've known each other now for 33 years and been together most of the time, been together. And he got a scholarship. He was an All-American football center, and he got a scholarship to the University of Wyoming. I had a scholarship to the University of Wyoming and several other places, and Cornell University. And we were just so good of friends that I didn't even think about prestige of a school or anything. We just wanted to stay together. So I decided to go with him, and he got a scholarship to Wyoming, and so I decided to take the scholarship to Wyoming. So I know what it is to protect your friends and to want to be with your friends. It's a tough pull. It's a tough pressure to have on kids that young and to have them sometime make, you know, a real good choice. But I don't regret it. I don't regret it. Okay, if I had to do it again, yeah, maybe I would have gone to Cornell.
What kind of experience did you have in the public schools in Casper?
Well, not at the public schools in Casper. What was his experience at the University of Wyoming?
Yeah.
The University of Wyoming, oh boy, I had a very, very colorful life at the University of Wyoming. You got to remember in '65, there was, I don't know the exact count, but I bet you there was not more than 11 black males on campus and maybe 5 black females that were of American origin, okay? There was some black Africans, but they numbered in maybe 5 at the most. So you have a university with 10,000 people and that few black citizens. And so you know that there's going to be a little pressure on you. You're going to feel cultural shock, number one. It was very difficult to feel a part of the university because of so few blacks. And nothing was designed to make a transition from a urban lifestyle to a rural lifestyle. So consequently, a lot of black folks coming from Chicago, California, the East Coast, had a difficult time in Laramie. And frankly, there was a lot of racism in Laramie. You couldn't get the house or the apartment that you wanted simply because you were black. So we had a lot of scuffles and ordeals along those lines. I had a coach who was ex-Marine captain, very hard, very strict, very non-bending sort of personality. And he was offended that I was dating white girls, so he and I had a falling out, and so I had to leave school after playing ball for 2 years. So I left school because Boys Town, frankly, did not teach me that I have to bow to that sort of belief and that sort of philosophy, and nor did my parents. And I was very hurt that here, I wanted to marry this young lady, and he told me that Casper would not allow him to let me do that. You can try to decipher that as I have for many years. But he said the people in Casper would not allow him to let me do that. And the only thing I can think that he meant is that the president of the trustees, board of trustees for the university, was David True. And the Trues on True Oil and Hilltop National Bank and all kinds of things around Wyoming. Anyway, because of that run-in, I left and went in the Army for 18 months, came back. He contacted me, agreed that, it was a mistake, would like me to finish my education, gave me another scholarship. So I went back in 1969, and I played ball, and in the middle of that season, the Black Students Alliance at that time, the Black Student Group, decided that we were going to protest the Mormon religion because the Mormon religion did not allow blacks to be priests, to hold the priesthood. The Mormon organizations in Utah did not allow black children to join clubs like the YMCA and any babysitting, preschool type things. And so as athletes, we know that we carry a lot of weight, a lot of influence. And we knew if we banded together, we could get our points across, that we would not accept that kind of behavior coming from a religion. And so as a Black Students Alliance, and that's of course not only athletes, but all the other people, blacks on campus, decided to symbolically protest playing BYU this next weekend by wearing black armbands to signify our protest. Okay. The coach, we sent a representative from the Black Students Alliance who happened to be a co-captain of the football team at the time, Joe Williams, sent him to the coach and said, let him know that we're going to play, but we're going to play under protest with the black armbands, symbolically protesting their racism. And he told Joe to go back to the group and tell us that if we wore the black armbands, we would not be allowed to play the game. So Joe did, and of course we stuck to our guns, and the day before the game he called us up in the gymnasium and told us, he said, gentlemen, as of now, you're no longer Cowboy football players. So he kicked 14 of us off, thus the name the Black 14, okay, which as I understand today, for example, I've got a child in Verda James, and she's in the 5th grade, and I had my older boy who's now in Centennial, he's in the 9th grade now, but when he was at Verda James, that they studied in history about the Black 14 at the University of Wyoming. So that case became so powerful of a case for the First Amendment, okay, freedom of speech, freedom of protest, and so forth. That is now one of the cases that most colleges, I talked to New Mexico University college professor, use in highlighting, freedom of speech, freedom to protest, and so forth. Okay. Now we took the case to the court in Cheyenne. Obviously, we lost. We took the case then to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Denver. We lost there. I ran out of money at that point. After the Wyoming court case, at that point I was running the suit myself. I was the only one pushing the suit myself. So I was raising money, people were sending me money, and to keep the case going. And after the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Denver, I ran out of money, so therefore the case was dropped. However, everyone, including myself, believed if we had gone to the Supreme Court, we would have won. Simply because right before us was the Tinker case in Iowa. Tinker case in Iowa, where the University of Iowa kicked out, well, maybe it wasn't the University of Iowa, some school in Iowa, kicked out some students who were protesting the Vietnam War. And the Supreme Court took that case and said, no, you cannot do that. They have the right to protest. But when the Supreme Court makes a ruling, it takes about 3 to 4 months for that ruling to filter down to the lower courts. Okay? So we are fighting this case similar to the Tinker case, but nobody, including judges, knew about the Tinker decision. So it takes a while for it to filter down. So based on that, we think that if we would have gone to the Supreme Court, we would have won the case. So that was a brief summary of what went on at the University of Wyoming. After that, I took cases to the court in Cheyenne on housing discriminating. I will try to get an apartment, a nice house. I wanted to base an apartment. A realtor by the name of Devereaux in Laramie told me, oh yeah, I called him on the phone. He said, oh yeah, meet me at the apartment and I'll show you the place. But when I got there, obviously you could see, the disappointment on his face that I was black, and he told me, didn't even show me the apartment, told me it's been rented. And I could tell by his reaction that he was lying. So I went back to my apartment, called him, and said, I would like to see the apartment on such and such street. And he said, okay, sure. This is 5 minutes later, 5-10 minutes later. And then I told him who I was. And I said, I'm going to take you to court. And he said, well, you do any damn thing you want. He said, but you're not going to live in my place. Okay? Now, that was one of 3 cases that I took to court in Cheyenne because of denying me, because of my race, a place to live. And do you know, I've lost every one of them. Okay? And I've lost every one of them in front of the same judge, Judge Kerr. Okay? I even had a university administrator on one of these cases go to the apartment that I was trying to rent after I was told that it was filled. This university representative went, white fellow. The guy, I'll never forget, I was hiding behind the fence. The owner came out with shaving cream all over his face, and Fred said, I would like to see apartment so-and-so. The guy said, well, I'm shaving right now, here's the keys, why don't you go check it out. Fred then testified to that down in Cheyenne.
Red, white, or
White.
black?
And I still lost. I still lost. So, yeah, historically, Laramie has been a very difficult place racially. And the bad thing about it, guys, is that it continues. It continues not only in Laramie, but it continues here in Casper. And we've been fighting it for years. Your generation now has to come up and say, no, this is wrong.
Mr. Hamilton, why does it continue in Casper? Can you give them some examples?
How does it continue? A couple of years ago, we had, well, let me just start with the most recent one. Last year, a gentleman called me. He works for K&N Energy. He's doing work with a construction company, and they start banting the word nigger around and making it difficult for him to feel comfortable to do his work. And he turned it into the energy people, and thank God the energy people agreed not to work with this company anymore. Okay, not too far from that incident was a case where we have people working for the city and being refused jobs, not given jobs, and basically on some trumped up charges about, well, it's filled or you don't qualify, a lot of those kinds of cases, okay? People come to me almost every month from the black community saying, we don't feel like we're getting a fair shot in the hiring of the city hiring and the governmental hiring in the state or in the city. And then, of course, we go to those certain departments that they have outlined, and we fight for them to get at least to get a hearing, or at least to get a chance to take the test for these jobs and so forth. And a lot of those situations, I know people in town, Josh knows them better than I do, that will tell you that they can't get a house in certain parts of Casper. Now, we know, we're sophisticated enough now to know that we can get it if we pursue it. But here's what some realtors are doing. Some realtors are not letting you know what is available because they have decided that they're going to keep this particular area race pure so that the valuation, of course, of the property will stay high. In their minds, of course, you know, that's that age-old fairy tale that when a black or a Mexican or a Chicano moves into a neighborhood, that the property value is going to drop. But we have proof that there are realtors in this city that are trying to do that, to keep certain areas race-free or ethnic race-free. So that, and what they do, they just don't tell you that there's a house available in that area. So there's a lot of incidents of racism in Casper.
What's your favorite memory about living in Casper?
My favorite memory about living in Casper, well, you've got to say, you know, the birth of your children. It has to be getting married, having my kids. All of my kids except one was born in Casper. Starting my teaching career at Casper at Kelly Walsh. Almost having a winning state champion football team at Kelly Walsh. Those are some of the highlights, you know. But let me tell you about Casper. And most blacks will tell you that the reason they're in Casper, because despite the advancement that we yet have to make, Casper seems to be the place for me that will allow me to be what I can be, despite of my color. Now, once you get through the superficial stuff, you know, racism, normally people I found in Casper and the surrounding areas will view you as a man doing his share, carrying his load, and usually they will not care what color you are, usually. Okay? And that's one of the reasons I'm still here, because that is not true in most part of this country. My kids, I don't have to worry about my kids being jumped most of the time. However, we did have a case in Kelly Walsh where white kids jumped on a black kid a year and a half ago. All right? We do have cases where the high school kids get together as a gang and attack minority kids and vice versa. So we do have that here. But generally speaking, you are able to live in a society here that is violent-free, that your parents can let you walk from Mini Mart at night to your home and back and forth. Whereas that's not a luxury. I mean, that is a luxury in most parts of the country. They wouldn't dare let their children out after dark to walk to Mini Mart or any place like Mini Mart. Relatively speaking, we have a violent-free community. And so the fact that I think that Wyoming will allow me to be successful if I prove that I can do the job, and the fact that my kids don't have to worry about a drive-by, is the reason that I'm still here, and the reason that most blacks are still here. Okay? No matter how low the job is here in Casper, it's probably higher than, I would say, 75% of the other areas in the country, as far as payment, as far as advancement, and so forth. So yeah, you have these little pockets all around Wyoming, that won't let you live where you want to live, won't let you get the job that you qualified for, or if you qualify for a job, won't let you do the job because they will find some reason to say that you're incapable of doing that job. Despite all those things, Wyoming is a nice place to live, and that's why I'm here in Casper.
How many kids do you have?
I have 5 kids. Top of my head. 5 kids. I have 3 girls and 3 girls and 2 boys.
What are their names?
My oldest is Kim. She's 29. Then my next would be Malik, and Malik is 24. Amber is 21. Derek is 14, and Zella is 10.
And what's your worst memory about living in Casper?
Worst memory about living in Casper? I think those little pockets of racism that I just mentioned. Whenever, and I don't know, maybe this is something you have to experience to understand what I'm saying. Whenever I hear of someone being racially discriminated upon, it really hurts me. It hurts me so bad that sometimes I just walk away from my wife and my kids, and I just cry, because to be denied something solely because of your color, that puts you in a hopeless position. See, because you can't change the color. So it's like no feeling you've ever experienced, knowing that you want something and the only thing that's stopping you from getting it is the color of your skin. And I imagine that is probably the terminal feeling of a suicidal victim, because you feel so hopeless. You feel like there's nothing I can do. And so whenever I experience something, my kids experience something, someone else experiences, and it doesn't, I don't care if you're black or Chicano or you're Asian or whatever. When you are discriminated upon because of the color of your skin is the worst feeling of anything I can imagine on earth. A couple of years ago, my son, who's a very good athlete, my little boy, played in AA baseball. And he's pitching, and he's catching, and he's hitting, looking good, doing a lot of things that made a lot of people angry. And he's playing this baseball team one day, and they started calling him nigger, nigger this, nigger that. Now I tell you, I can't explain that feeling to you. But my little daughter, who was then about 7 or 8 years old, knew that that was wrong, even though she did not know the meaning of that word, knew that it was wrong, and they were saying something bad about her brother. And she came running to me and started crying and said, "Dad, they're saying something bad about Derek." That is like no other feeling you can imagine. So is racism here in Casper? Yes, it is. Those are my terrible moments. Most people will tell you, most adults will tell you that, hey, I can bear anything. I can endure anything. But once you start doing these things to my family is when you cross the line. And with me, they've crossed the line so many times. But that's a terrible feeling. I don't wish that feeling on you ever. So that's my worst experience.
Mr. Hamilton, when you experience this, what stops you from getting bitter and getting totally hopeless?
There's got to be, something has to be said about family traditions, family values. And every time I experience something like this, I always go back to my mother. When we were growing up in the South, my mom was very religious to the day she died, very religious. My mom would go to church every day, not every Sunday, every day. And half of those times, she would drag me with her, okay? But Mom always said, turn the other cheek. Turn the other cheek. And that was rammed into me, into my consciousness, into my way of life, that when I experience these things, as angry as I get, I always remember. I always fall back on foundation that my mom gave me religiously, on how we should treat one another. Okay? And I remember doing the Black 14 thing down at the University of Wyoming. You know, I'm a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid. I tried, because I was so angry, tried to make myself hate white people. I tried. Because I was so angry, I wanted to lash out. I saw one of my partners grab a white person, a white boy, skinny white boy, grab him, banged his head into the ceiling. And I said, no, this is wrong. So I stopped. I stopped. But see, you cannot change who you are. You might want to try, but you cannot change who you are. And the foundation of brotherly love and treating everybody like I would want to be treated was ingrained in me. So no matter how hard I tried to push it out of me, it remained. So that's how I deal with it. I just remember what my mom always told me about dealing with people. And I truly believe that you treat people the way you want to be treated. So that foundation, along with my adult philosophy, keeps me sort of even keeled about race things. But the anger never goes away. The pain never goes away. You just have to allow yourself, like we tell you young people, with conflict resolution, allow yourself the opportunity to count to 10. Allow yourself the opportunity to get away from the confusion and the chaos and cool down before you make a decision. I do my crying, I do my stomping, my anger, my cursing, and I come back to reality. And reality is you never treat marketing celebration. Every year we award the Reverend Reeb, James Reeb Award, and Reverend James Reeb was a white minister here from Casper who died during the civil rights marches down in Alabama. And, well, of course, the marches went all over the South. And he was killed with a baseball bat because he was part of the freedom marches. And he was from Casper, and every year the Equality Coalition awards this award to some worthy person in the community, also the worthy corporation in the community, and the worthy governmental institution in Wyoming. I also was a recipient of that award. I'm also with the Grassroots Project, and the Grassroots Project, again, is an organization that trying to make this country and this world safe for people of all kinds of nationalities, religions, and creeds, and also sexual preference. And we got together and we presented down to the legislature this year. I was happy to be a part of that group and got up and spoke towards making laws tougher for people who commits crime laws, making laws tougher for people that go around gay bashing or attacking people because of their sexual orientation, or also attacking people because of their Christian identity or religious identity. I belong to the Vision 2000 committee that is a group, a governmental group that's designed to help make Casper a little better for all citizens. We go out and actually try to find out what the citizens want and then try to make those things happen. Okay? I do parenting groups all over the state. So those are just some of the few things that I'm involved in.
Did you mention the NAACP?
Oh, excuse me. Oh my goodness. Reverend Pierce, you would kill me. The NAACP, I'm a member of the NAACP. And of course that organization has existed since 1905, I think it is. And of course the advancement of colored people, the National Advancement of Colored People is the NAACP. And it was originally started because of the racist problem that the United States endures. And now it started out with only black folks, but for years, like 50 years, it's been anyone who is interested in making racial issues a thing of the past for the United States.
And what does it stand for?
National Advancement of Colored People.
Are there any other stories or experiences you can share that can help us understand Afro-American?
To help you understand the African American, I've always said, if you really think about your family, your traditions, okay, and how you would feel if your brother, your grandparents, your parents was being mistreated because they were in Harlem, or they were in South Africa, or they were in Brazil, in a majority, in a situation that the majority of colored people, now truly can use colored people in this sense, because you're talking about Asians, and you're talking about Africans, and you're talking about Hispanics, and you're talking about Brazilians, and so forth. Okay, truly applies in this scenario. Colored truly applies. If you can imagine all the things that I've told you today, and all the things you've seen on TV, and all the things you know happens in your own group, and you can imagine that your parents, your grandparents, your brothers and sisters is in this sea of darkness, and they're being treated the way I've just enumerated to you. Feel that pain. Feel how you would experience that pain. And if you do 100% what I told you to do, you would not be close to the pain that we truly feel. But you would have an idea. You would have an idea. Better yet, feel the children that you will have someday. Put them in that scenario and imagine how you would feel. It's almost, well, it is worse than a teacher giving you an F because they told you you cheated and you know you haven't. The most embarrassing thing of your life when you're accused of cheating and you know you haven't, especially if you're accused of cheating in front of your entire class. I can give you scenarios, but it would never come close to the actual pain of racism.
Mr. Hamilton, could you briefly explain your career here? I mean, you started out teaching at Kelly Walsh. Was that,
I started
first
out,
of all, Josh, your Uncle Ray is going to be here at 3. You want to go down the front door and bring him in? Okay, thanks.
I started, I came here, in, like I said, in 1974, and I'm looking for a teaching job. I get a coaching job at Kelly Walsh. But before that, I worked at Kmart because I'm waiting for a teaching job to come open. And finally, in the spring semester, a teaching job came over at Kelly Walsh, where I finished a semester because of a teacher that was leaving. And then the next year, I was offered a elementary PE job, where I taught at Fairdale, Grant, University Park, and I think that's it. And so I was doing elementary PE that second year and coaching at Kelly, football, wrestling, and track at Kelly Walsh. From there, I went to Kelly Walsh full-time as a PE teacher and a coach. And from there, I went to Roosevelt for a year, back to Kelly Walsh, and CY, and went back to Kelly Walsh from CY when I got my master's in counseling, and went over to Roosevelt as a counselor and an assistant principal for 4 years, and got the job here at East as principal. And by the way, my getting this job makes me the only African American that's been a principal in Casper, but not only that, but the only African American principal in the state of Wyoming. So I'm real proud of those two distinctions. And I'm working really, really hard to make sure that I represent the African American in this capacity. So that's my career in Casper.
Are there any other relatives in Casper?
Well, other than my immediate family, no. My relatives are all on the East Coast. My oldest daughter lives in San Francisco. But my immediate family, my brothers, my cousins, my uncles, nephews, they're mostly on the East Coast, southeast.
Are there any other people you feel we should talk to?
If you haven't talked to Don Jackson, and
Senior or junior? We talked
Senior.
to junior, we need to get to
Senior is the man that has been here, knows a lot of history. His wife, Mary Jane, excuse me, she also knows a lot of history. You're bringing in Reverend Jackson. I hear Josh is going to bring him in. But Mr. Jackson is about 65, 64, and he tells me things to this day that I'm just amazed that he knows. But he knows a lot of history about Casper. He'd be the man to do it.
He's on our list of people calling. You've given us a bunch of other names
Yeah.
too that we're working on. You mentioned Don Jackson, and Don talked some, he and his wife talked about the interracial experience here in Casper, and I was surprised. They had only had one incident in 17 years of marriage where they were worried, you know. What about you?
You find that people look at you funny. You know, everybody experienced that. That if you're interracially married or just going out, they look at you kind of funny. You learn over the years to accept those looks. You never feel comfortable with them. The problem with interracial marriages, especially, is that you never know which one of your bosses or which people in your lives, especially your work life, that's going to use that dislike against you. For example, I was talking to Dr. Stan Olson, our new superintendent, and he and I were just sitting down conversing, and he said, do you realize that a lot of people are not going to like you simply because you're married to your wife? And yes, I do realize that, because when we don't get served at places quickly enough, and I've been here long enough to know what an average serving period is, then you have to tend to think about, well, you know, what's the problem here? Okay? So you experience the looks, you experience the slow services many times, and not a lot, but a few times. Anytime, and maybe rightly or wrongly, because of the racist society that we live in, generally in the United States, whenever you don't get an advancement, or whenever you don't get a job you know that you're qualified for, you always have to ask yourself, was that because I'm black? Or is that because my wife is white? Okay? I have, now you might think this is odd, but I have a very influential Casperite male in his mid-70s that I have lunch with once a month during the regular school year at the Petroleum Club, and he and I talk about his racism. And his comment is, I like you, I don't like your situation. Help me become a better human being. Quote, help me become a better human being. So here I have this man who obviously influenced positions and principles and laws and just good old boy promises in this community, that has confessed to me that he has a problem with my wife and myself. But these are the people that hire, these are the people that fires, these are the people that make our rules and regulations. This is the only man that's ever had enough guts to tell me that that exists in him. And we have this strange friendship. We have this strange friendship because he's honestly trying to work on this problem. but he's the only man that I've ever known, well, obviously to me, that has ever admitted to me that he have a problem with him. And he knows, and I know, that there's a lot of other people that have a problem with me and my wife, or have a problem with interracial anything. I mean, well, you're too young to know, but as you grow older, you'll find very many cases where a mom and a dad disowns a daughter because she's having an interracial situation. I've been married for 14 years. I've seen my mother, my wife's mom, 3 times in 14 years. The third time was like a month ago. Yeah, it's a lot of people don't like it. I used to think that it was just the old folks because that's how they grew up, you know, World War I and II, but I'm finding out that it's younger and younger all the time. We're dealing with a younger and younger group. Racism in America seems to be going backwards, and that's why I'm happy to talk about racism to you guys, to let you know the ugliness of it and how you need to stop it in your generation. The longer I live, the more pessimistic I get, because I know I've done my darndest to eradicate racism in this country and in this state, and it just seems to be going backwards. So I hope you guys can do a better job than I did.
I hope you guys also realize how important this project is now, having listened to Mr. Hamilton. And I hope when you decide what your final product is going to be, it's going to be raise awareness around some of the things that he's brought up. It's in your letter. We're discovering that quite a
Which letter?
I put a letter in your mailbox.
This week?
Oh, it was last week.
Okay, I probably haven't read it yet.
Okay. Well, when you have time, will you go through and look at, there's a list of graduates.
One of the sins of this city and many cities around the United States is that, and maybe you guys can think of this project after this one, I bet you we have a Chicano graduation rate. I wouldn't even say 1% in this city. Graduation rate. And I tell you, someone needs to do a study, and this may be one of your doctoral theses someday, guys, but we need to find a solution to that problem. I think it's and I'm saying this with a great amount of confidence that I'm correct. I think it's the highest dropout rate of any group in this country is Chicano graduation rate. And that is a crime. That is a crime. So I know this is a special project for you, but I hope this will excite you to keep on going in this vein, because there's a lot of things wrong in our society, and we need people like you to investigate it, to study it, and to make it known to everybody else. So that's something maybe for the future.
As you get closer to planning Martin Luther King Day in January, will you remember to include these kids in there?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think, we've talked some, and we're all getting the feeling that we'll probably be done with the interviewing, but the idea of having a final project by then, I don't think it's going to come to fruition. This is much larger than we thought it would be, so.
You're doing it. You're doing the best you can. So that means you'll have to make an amendment.
In column since 1990, so I've been doing it for 7 years for the Star Tribune. And I guess my big thrill was when Nyla Murphy called me up. When one of my columns, I can give it to you later, but in 1990 that I wrote, she was the representative for Natrona County, a Republican, and she called me up that morning when my column ran and said that the Martin Luther King bill had been stuck in House committee, but that she read my column, and so that column gave one more vote so it could get out of committee onto the floor. So a lot of times people that aren't African American can move things because they're in positions of power, like Dr. Murphy. one of the things that, you know, and Representative Murphy both, but one of the things that has always motivated me, and this is just personal, is that my great-grandmother belonged to a black church. She was born in 1865 when Lincoln died. She was saved by a black woman during the war. She was 3 months old during the Civil War. She belonged to a black church, and she told me when I was 9 and she was 86, she died around 1949, and I'm 57 now. So she told me that since it had been white people that had kicked black people out of their churches, that it was the best way to heal rifts would be if white people went to black churches. I belong to Grace A&E in Casper, and I love it there. I sing gospel there. I was excited that you guys are doing this project for many reasons, and so Susan Stanton and I got back into the old archives of the Casper Star Tribune, and I found you stuff. I'm so happy that I found you these things. I found the Star Tribune coverage of when Martin Luther King died. I brought that to you. I brought all the things I could find under this one little envelope called Negroes in Casper. And there's some names in there of people and stories that you'll be able to read, and you'll be able to see the progress and the awareness of, you'll have an awareness of some of the things that these people have fought for. Mel Hamilton is in these, as far as the story behind Mel's the Black 14 event in Laramie. Full of the BYU and the Mormon belief then, and so some of these things are just so much fun. This one is the Martin Luther King's death reported in the Star Tribune. Now some of these different things, this one says in 1968 that Negro leaders' state problem is ignored, that Casper has a black ghetto, that the streets are dirt. We have all kinds of wonderful different